Hello there, and as usual, I'm Aaron from Last Stand Gamers, and welcome. So recently, I watched a documentary on Camp Century. If you've never heard of that, basically it was a US base that was built within the Arctic, and what really fascinated me about it was how they transported all the supplies. They basically used these cool little sleds, but it got me thinking even more that establishing an outpost in a remote area is extremely difficult, and especially when you have to bring all the supplies with you. So I thought I'd just build myself a little pod that I could use and deploy in various situations. Now it's quite simple. We've got a light armor sort of exterior. We've got ourselves a basic door that folds open and closed, keeping it sort of controlled from the elements outside, and a little bit of reinforcing in areas. We've also got solar power, and we've got connection points. Now let's break this down. I'll spawn my little character and I'll show you the basic pod. So in pod number 2, we actually just have an empty hull, and these could be used for a whole variety of different things. Say for instance, you need to go mine a location, you could pack all your mining equipment here and build the module inside ready for mining. Or if you wanted to perhaps attack a location, you could use the pod again for doing that as well. There's many different situations. Maybe you need to construct an outpost. Well, we've got the exact pod over here, so this is what I constructed, just a pod that would be perfect for constructing the outpost. Now the limitations in Space Engineers mean that we only have access to the large block assembler and refinery unless you add some modifications in. So what I've done is underneath here I actually have a rotor, and I've connected that rotor to the small ship base. Now there's a few other factors that we need to take into consideration if you're thinking about doing your own sort of pod. First off, we've got the ability to build stuff, and that's probably the most important. Now we need to be able to power our refinery and assembler, because otherwise without power then it'd be useful. There'll just be two, well, it'll be useless. There'll just be two blocks that are just sitting inside there. So we have ourselves a solar generator. And the important thing to remember when you're fitting a solar generator is have somewhere to store the energy, because when there's no sunlight at night, I've seen a lot of people failed this simple task. They have nowhere to store the energy, so we've just got the solar sort of relay for the batteries just down in the side there, storing that power. Now some of the other equipment you might need is a rover, because you might have to venture a little bit further out and then carry your supplies back, and the astronaut can't carry many supplies. So here's a little bit of an idea of what you can do when it comes to having a rover. So we've just got a basic storage there. We've got a vent, so that'll suck in oxygen for the cockpit, so you can always refill your oxygen inside. And if you want to transport that little rover around, if you look underneath, we've just got some little landing gears, and if you want to get it off this platform, you can go into the control panel here. Very simple. Go to your wheels, and all you have to do is change the offset limit of the suspension. So we need to find that. Let's find our height limit, suspension travel. It should be near 0. Height offset, we just need to lower them down to the ground like so. Once we've done that, we can disconnect the landing gears from below. So let's make sure them landing gears are disconnected. We need to access some sort of tab or control panel. We'll just have to float over to this side, and then we can do this. But obviously you could set these landing gears up so they're not actually connected. So let's just unlock for the moment and then put the auto disconnect on as well. So there you go, you can see the wheels have popped up and this vehicle is now ready to roll, and we can actually drive this out here if we're careful. Try not to hit the wall too hard, and we can just roll off down that ramp, and we can have a vehicle that we can quickly access. So that was just a few ideas that I had in building into this pod. And the final little idea is the pod that you do not have to consider is if you don't land on a planet that has good oxygen like the Earth planet, you're going to have to work out some way of producing or storing oxygen. Now my recommendation would have a combination here. We've got the oxygen tanks and we've got the oxygen producer. So when you do find ice, that most planets, most asteroids, wherever actually has them in, you can actually stick them in there, produce your oxygen, and you can stay alive for a lot longer. Remember, you need them oxygen bottles in them storage containers so you can swap them out. Otherwise, you'll have to sit in a chair to refill your oxygen. That will be a little bit more difficult. So that was just a few of my ideas when it came to establishing an outpost. I feel this is a far more efficient way than transporting all the supplies in the cargo container, because once this hits the ground, you can start building straight away. So just a bit of food for thought, and I'd love to hear what else you think I need to fit within these pods, in case you've got any other great ideas.